In May of 2021, 6-year-old Aiden Leos was riding to kindergarten in his booster seat on a California freeway when his mom flipped off a driver who cut her off. Moments later, the passenger pulled out a gun and fired through their trunk, striking Aiden in the back. His final words were, "Mommy, my tummy hurts," before he collapsed bleeding in his mother's arms. He died minutes later, while the shooter, Marcus Aris, was sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. A gambling man from Pakistan was so desperate when he ran out of money to wager, so in a twisted move, he put his own wife on the line. When he lost, the winner claimed his prize by raping her, even recording the assault to blackmail her into silence. In 2023, 6 Mississippi cops who called themselves the Goon Squad stormed into a home without a warrant after a neighbor complained about 2 black men staying with a white woman. What followed was hours of torture straight out of a nightmare. The officers tased the men, forced them to strip, and poured milk, alcohol, and chocolate syrup over their bodies while taunting them with racial slurs. They made them crawl on the floor, threatened to sexually assault them, and even forced them to shower together at gunpoint. The ordeal finally ended after one officer shoved a gun into Michael Jenkins' mouth and pulled the trigger, shattering his jaw but somehow not killing him. To cover it up, the squad planted drugs and filed false reports, but the truth eventually came out and all 6 were sentenced to decades in prison. In April of 2025, 44-year-old Felix Rojas boarded a late-night New York City subway and spotted 44-year-old Jorge Gonzalez slumped dead in his seat, believed to have collapsed from natural causes. But instead of calling for help, Rojas did the unthinkable. He first rummaged through the man's pockets for valuables, then dragged his lifeless body to the floor, pulled down the man's pants, and assaulted him. Surveillance showed him pausing the assault each time the train reached a station, only to resume once the doors closed, carefully timing his abuse to avoid being caught. Weeks later, police identified Rojas from the footage and he surrendered, accused of one of the most grotesque crimes ever caught on a New York City subway. In 2018, Tyrone Johnson snapped during a fight with his girlfriend Stephanie Willis after she allegedly mocked him over his son's suicide. He shot her in the bedroom, then hunted down her 10-year-old son Ricky, who was hiding under his bed. The boys' room became a scene of horror, with toys scattered, shell casings on the floor, and blood pooling from beneath his bed. In 2022, Johnson was sentenced to death for the killings. In October of 2024, a 67-year-old man from Arkansas was awaiting trial for disgusting crimes against a 14-year-old girl. Despite a no-contact order, he allegedly continued to pursue her, and one night the girl's father discovered her inside a vehicle with him. In the heat of that confrontation, the father pulled out a gun and fatally shot the predator right in front of his daughter. He's since been charged with first-degree murder. In 2018, a woman who'd been in a vegetative state for 14 years at Hacienda Healthcare gave birth unexpectedly, as staff had no idea she was even pregnant. DNA evidence later revealed she'd been raped by a nurse over several years. The nurse, Nathan Sutherland, pled guilty to sexual assault and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The case led to widespread reforms in how care facilities protect vulnerable patients. In April of 2024, 10-year-old Dakota Levi Stevens of Indiana died when his 340-pound foster mother, Jennifer Lee Wilson, pinned him to the floor with her whole body weight for 5 minutes as discipline. As Dakota screamed while gasping for air, she accused him of faking until he went limp, only then attempting CPR. Wilson was sentenced to 6 years in prison for reckless homicide, while it later emerged that Dakota had begged his neighbor to adopt him, saying his foster parents were abusive. Doctors were baffled when a teenage leukemia patient kept developing life-threatening infections until they discovered the boy's mom was doing something horrific to tamper with his treatments. In 2016, Indiana woman Tiffany Alberts was caught secretly injecting feces into her son's IV, causing him to develop severe bloodstream infections that left him feverish, vomiting, and near death. His chemo had to be stopped for nearly 2 months, and the disturbing act ultimately earned Tiffany a 7-year prison sentence. She later claimed she did this in hopes of getting him moved to a different hospital floor where she believed he'd receive better care. In 2015, Berlina Wallace laughed as she threw acid on her ex-boyfriend while he slept, telling him, "If I can't have you, no one can." The attack left him with horrific injuries, burns, blindness in one eye, paralysis, and the loss of a leg. After nearly 2 years in agony, he was euthanized in Belgium in 2017. Wallace was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 12 years.